Hey, and happy, or at least, less awful year to you all. 2023, eh? The year that looks like a swan with a large egg being followed by a swan with a big bum. And yes, that is, I think, the best thing to say about it so far. I don't know if you know this, but 2023 is the year the films Avengers Endgame, X-Men Days of Future Past, and The Purge Anarchy all take place. So if life does indeed imitate art, then we're fine, as arguably none of those are anywhere close to art. I joke, of course. I'm not Martin Scorsese, despite my increasingly aggressive eyebrows. But while those films, and indeed Texas Chainsaw Massacre, all might portray a bleak and possibly accurate outlook for the year ahead, Bring It On, Cheer or Die is also based in 2023, and, that's actually worse. But perhaps ParPolBro's Cheer or Die is an accurate message for what lies ahead. The latter is definitely an easier option in the UK, with no heating, food becoming ever more expensive, and the NHS frontline seeming more and more like something Christopher Nolan will be making a 4-hour film about in 10 years' time. Gosh, this little bonus episode is film reference heavy, isn't it? You'll never guess what I've spent the Christmas holidays doing. Yeah, that's right, no films at all, just eating and wishing there was an extra holiday after Christmas one, but where the kid was at school. Sorry, what I was going to say is cheer or die. Die is the easy option, so really, I think all of us, we should just get big cheer energy, charging ahead, knowing full well that even if there's no general election in sight in the UK, we can only be months away from so much of the country being on strike during then immense blackouts that the rest of the world will declare us closed, and then we can all have a rest. The Prime Minister and rejected Phineas and Ferb design Rishi Sunak said in his New Year's Eve message that his government would put people's priorities first. So with any luck, they'll all focus on walking into the sea within the next week or so. Sorry. What I meant to say was hello and welcome to a very mini episode of the Partly Political broadcast, where once again I shouldn't be making predictions because we have got our expert on the future. So good, he's not just a forecaster, he's a fivecaster, Newstradamus, who has returned to kindly give his recorded thoughts on what lies ahead. Apart from the Conservatives, as they just sort of lies all the time. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this mini bonus. Yeah, and I'll catch you after the future predictions of Newstradamus. Greetings! I have once again traversed the corridors of space-time, stealing things from the stationery cupboard of infinitum, accidentally interrupting the eternal meeting, and briefly popping into the lavatories of inertia, which aren't great for when you need to flush and nothing goes anywhere. I did all these travels to grace you humble-time noobs, you who say things like just a minute, without realizing that for your pitiful existences, that 60 seconds could be the difference between greatness and an uncomfortable cramp. Yes, it is I, Newstradamus, the Or-andical, the Augurer, the Maximum, because I'm too good to be a medium, the Seer, Sayer, Sorter, and indeed the Unsoothsayer, as what I bring to you will be less relaxing than that previously mentioned uncomfortable cramp, while being forced to watch the 9D screening of Avatar 12, the cycle lane of slight breezes, where every character is played by James Corden. But before we dive headfirst into the massive concrete block in the way of progress that is the year ahead, how am I? Well, I appreciate you asking. I know you haven't asked yet, but I also know you will, and so I've saved you the trouble. You're welcome. Since I last blew your tiny minds with my predictions of 2022, all of which, as you'll remember, were exactly correct, and if they weren't, that's your fault for not doing it properly. Since then, I have sadly spent a large amount of time in the hospital. No, don't worry, it's the hospitals in the year 2067 where they've all been bought out by private companies, and I was stuck in a Disney one where, despite only having a minor injury, they put me to sleep for 1,000 years, or until a prince came along and gave me a kiss. It is a shocking situation. All the doctors have Mickey Mouse degrees, and if you need to call a nurse, you have to give a little whistle. I was all fixed, though. They had scanned my heart and thought I had a little mermaid, but turned out to be a side effect from the sandwich I'd bought, which had no sell-by date and was actually made in 2028. Anyway, all done now, so henceforth into my predictions for 2023, the year historians in the future will refer to as the "Oh God, why won't this end" year. The NHS will hang on by a thread, with the government refusing to fund or help it until there are just 300 medical staff available for the entire UK. They dress like Spartans, which is partly due to a continued lack of PPE, and after successfully heading off the spirograph strain of COVID that had everyone going round in circles trying to treat it, and then the petit flu, which caused a yoghurt-like phlegm to clog up patients, and of course leprosy, which came back a full UK reunion tour no one was expecting until they announced it on their Instagram, the UK government rewards the 300 survivors with a nationwide Vuvuzela blowing celebration on the doorsteps at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday, before then firing them all and replacing the entire National Health Service with a stall that sells dinosaur plasters just outside of Market Harborough. Energy costs will keep rising to the point that only Rishi Sunak and King Charles are able to afford any, and decide to keep up public spirits with displays of combative heat-offs where freezing cold crowds watch as the Prime Minister and King get themselves as warm as they can feasibly take without passing out, for the people. It was originally planned as a TV series, but with no one being able to afford electricity anymore at £7,000 a kilowatt, that went under, and celebrities themselves ceased being after the last bunch of Love Island contestants refused to come home, taking the island for themselves and declaring it as their own new land before killing each other off in a Lord of Flies type situation, but with a lot more makeup in under 3 weeks. Rishi Sunak wins the competition against King Charles after the royal tries too hard and evaporates, and the competition then ends. Energy costs then drop again to their lowest ever when someone discovers a way to convert disappointment into electricity, and Britain instantly becomes the main global resource, consequently increasing happiness amongst the people and causing us to lose the title again, which of course causes upset, and then we gain it again, and then lose it again, and so on until death. Inflation falls in the middle of the year, causing the British government to insist that actually wages should be in line with it, and they lower wages for all public sector workers. When asked why they didn't do this when inflation rose, Oliver Dowden shouts, "Look over there!" and then runs off in the opposite direction and gets into a taxi never to be seen again. As more and more workers go on strike, they reach a peak in the third week of July, when the only people at work in the UK are MPs and the government, although no one is actually sure of that as they're still not doing anything about anything. Rishi Sunak says in order to stop the strikes affecting people's lives and livelihoods, he bans jobs from the UK, and anyone found to have one is immediately deported by the Home Office to Antarctica, where they've set up a dodgy 4-year deal with some penguins who are a bit lonely. This does, of course, get rid of the job of being Prime Minister or an MP and the multitude of second jobs, causing great anger from many who then aren't really sure who to complain to. Oddly, artists, actors and other creative professionals are able to stay in work as people don't consider them to have real jobs, and they quickly become the richest people in the country but are unable to create any kind of better society as they all think they deserve the main role, and they've worked really hard to get it. Global leaders continue to insist they're doing everything they can to stop climate change, and it's all going very well actually, until it's exposed that due to staff encouraging them to never leave their offices because of extreme air pollution, they just thought the thermostat was how it was everywhere else too. The UK suffers extreme floods, fires, snow, frog rain and winds all on one particular Wednesday in October, causing a mass movement towards Parliament in retaliation. I mean, not on purpose, it's just where the water current takes everyone. Sadly, the mass of the crowd just causes the Palace of Westminster to become really well insulated, and the British government realise they're quite safe in there for a while. Rishi Sunak shouts encouraging slogans out of a small speaker in St Stephen's Chapel, promising that we're doing everything we can to stop this from happening, even though it's already happened, but we will build 4 new coal mines in Brighton. He also says if 40 more people can float over to the windows on the cloisters, then you can all have £5 off at Pret. And of course, are any of you interested in business? Running out of things to destroy, the Conservatives turn once again to their own party, spending the first few months of 2023 blocking all their own policies and trying to unseat Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister to instead replace him with a crocodile they've put a tie on and called Teethly Susan. Sunak refuses to stand aside, but manages to win a vote of no confidence against Teethly Susan as the crocodile eats a third of the party, and witnessing this, Sunak has Teethly replace Dominic Raab as Justice Secretary, as he's certain the crocodile will be better for staff morale. The Labour Party promised to set out the case for change, which they put outside their HQ in the hope people may put pennies in it to help fund them. Starmer decides the people they need to target to get into power are a very specific demographic known as men with 12 houses called Rishi, and they spend millions of pounds on focus groups with Rishi Sunak asking what men like him specifically need. They start a bold new campaign called Rishi for Everyone under Labour and for the Rishi not the few, with Keir Starmer spending each week at Prime Minister's Questions criticising the Prime Minister for not giving himself more me time, which he'd get loads of under Labour. The situation in Ukraine gets worse until, sick of Putin, his own officers pretend not to know where or what Ukraine is, and he starts to believe he's stuck inside his own bad dream and goes to live in the Siberian woods with a snow leopard called Anastasia. Having watched this unfold, the Scottish government take note and decide the best way for their independence is to just disappear overnight. The entire country agree to just go when no one's looking, and it's revealed the next morning when a man in Catloudy is eaten by a shark going for a stroll to the shops in Harelaw. And Elon Musk decides the best thing for Twitter is to ban words entirely and only have users spell out the exact hums a Tesla motor has. Duolingo is the surprise winner of the social media game. As a result, users flock to the platform in order to tell each other that their neighbour is an owl and insist they are a butterfly. And that is all I can reveal for now, or I suppose I'd be done for indecent exposure. Besides, if I ruin any more, what will be left for the British government to do? I will simply divulge that you might want to throw away all your shoes by March so to avoid the resurgence of spontaneous combustion, and be sure to stop using any honey-based toiletries or shampoos to ensure longer survival during the plague of bears that will hit for 2 to 3 days around late spring after they're carried over on a strong wind from the US. My financial tips are the words argy-bargy, chinchillas and the number plinth. Do take care, and also anything else you can steal during the inevitable riots. I will see you all at the beginning of 2024, which will confusingly also be the beginning once again of 1672 due to a terrible calendrical mishap, so I'll be certain to inform you of all the best bits of the collapse of the Dutch Republic to watch out for, and the best ways to wear your tuberculosis. Mwah! Wow, and there you go. So thank you very much to Newstradamus for that incredible insight. Will it all be correct? We will have to wait and see. Though, of course. No, wait, of course. But I do hope you have a good 2023, despite all signs for this one largely looking like it'll be fairly similar to 2022, but with fewer new Prime Ministers, royal deaths, or Top Gun sequels, which, depending on how you look at it, is very good news or actually really terrible news. Thanks to all of you who've listened back to old episodes of this show over Christmas, or you've kept on the Patreon through the mini break, or donated via the Ko-fi, all of which is appreciated. This podcast is going to be back all proper on January the 17th. Yes, I know it should be back next week, but it's my birthday, and I am not spending my birthday trying to find yet another way to describe how small and beady Jeremy Hunt's creepy eyes are. That is not how I want to spend the day. Can you forgive me that? Yeah. Can you give me that? Yeah, exactly. It's fair. If you have any suggestions for guests and that sort of stuff in the new year, I'm going to obviously try and talk to someone about the NHS and things like that. But if you've got any ideas, do drop me a line at the usuals. Otherwise, you get yourself into this here year, and I will be back in your ears shortly. Bye.